That's really fun. Okay. So, going out on a blast, I was very upset that this person canceled at the last minute, literally at the last minute. Didn't bother to tell anybody. And this person had already lost my support after having dealt with this person, I don't know, 8 years ago, and this person was very difficult then, as if this person was already some sort of star that I should worship. No. You are another pain in my ass that I have to work extra hard for the same amount of money. For the same results, I now have to spend more energy, more time, and put up with your crap to get through this show. And then when you don't show up, there's, 30, 40 minute hole in our program. Now, this person wasn't the only person to cancel last night, heinous as it is. But her cancellation was way last minute and was the one that seemed to be the most excited. Oh, I'm very excited about being on your show. I can't wait to be a part of this. Stop lying. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to see your face again. I don't want to see your name on social media. I want you to leave the state personally. Go find something that you can do, like maybe wash dishes, right? Or dig a dirt or something. Because obviously you need a small dose of humility to realize that you are not special. In fact, you have shown yourself to be less than even some of the kids that come, because Voice in the Pen is for everybody songwriter. It's not an open mic. You have to have your stuff prepared, and even if you're new and it's your first time on the stage and you're scared as all get out and you're shaking in your boots, we'll work with you. It's not a problem. We don't, we're not there to hurt you. We're there to help you succeed. To have a great show. This person didn't even bother to show up. The last time I had this person on a stage and I had to deal with them, it was extremely difficult. Extremely difficult to deal with somebody who seems to think that they are the most important person in the room. I wish all kinds of bad things for this person so that they understand they are not alone. They are not an island. They are not a rock. They are not special. And if you make a commitment to somebody, that is your word. That is your name on that. And as far as I'm concerned, your name ain't worth crap anymore. And if anybody asks me for a recommendation, you are not getting that. You are going to be laid, what did your boy Chaucer say in Knight's Tale? I will eviscerate you in word, in prose, in publishing. I will expose every zit and flaw and use it for entertainment at my discretion. Right now, I will not release this person's name, but I am sure at some point there will be a conversation. And, don't be surprised if this person who has a number of posts on their page about all these other fantastic gigs this person's going to do. But don't be surprised if that person doesn't show up, but doesn't bother to tell anybody, let alone the club owner, until, 20, 30 minutes before. Part of the email says, please be there by 6 o'clock. I had one person there at 6:30. The show starts at 7. You want to know why sound guys are grumpy? It's crap like this. We're not there for our health, and we're sure as hell aren't there for the money. Well, okay, we are. But it's not like we're going to get rich off of this thing. For me, it's a substitute for a gym membership. Because I just don't have the discipline to make it to the gym every morning at 6 a.m. Just not going to happen. I know me. The only thing that happens at 6 o'clock is a trip to the bathroom and a pot of coffee. That's it. You're not going to see me tossing tires or what are those rope things? I mean, that's all well and good. Have at it. You could probably break me like a twig. That's fine. I know how I work. But if I make a commitment, as I have to the Voice in the Pen, that I will be there every Wednesday bringing the best of what I have to offer for the Voice in the Pen production. And that's quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen. That's 2 stops that I have to make to get all of the equipment into that club to provide the best audio-video recording support that I possibly can. How do you think the Voice and Pen would feel if I canceled? Not very good. They probably wouldn't want me back. Well, this person had better not be surprised that we don't ever want to see this person ever again. Ever. In fact, I think we should, form a little protest or whatever and petition Facebook to, remove her from our stuff, because our stuff is still on her page, and I don't want to be associated with her. We're professionals. We know what we're doing. We show up when we say we're going to. Right? Even with a broken toe. I just had to be reminded of that. One of the shows, I think it was the second show we did, I had just broken my toe like the night before. And I was still hauling in nearly, 1,000 pounds worth of equipment and tossing it around and making it work. Wasn't the prettiest, I wasn't the happiest, but it worked, and it worked well. And then we got this platinum diva who thinks that they themselves are more important than everything that we have put together over. I mean, Voice in the Pen been around for over a year, or about a year. And I've been working with him for 2 or 3 months. And that was a commitment that I had to look at, is like, do I want to do this every Wednesday for that kind of money? Because there's not a lot of money in original music right now. I mean, duh. But it's that important to me to support the people that are, these artists. They are artists, they're poets, musicians, singing. Some are great, some are not so great. Even the ones that are great, not every tune is great. And even the ones that aren't so great have great tunes. It's quite the chaotic insight into the human condition overall. Because we don't relate to life in our own head as individuals. No, we relate to life through interactions with other people and views of other people, through poetry, through art, through dance, through sculpture, through music. And supporting it may not be for everybody, but it is for me because it's important to me. So I weighed it very carefully in my head, knowing what this type of commitment means. And that means every single week, I'm at the club 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The show doesn't start till 7. Just to put that in there. So it's extremely important to me. So much so that I clear out that entire day to make sure that I have everything I need ready to go for that show. But if you're not going to bother to show up, if you know you're not going to bother, if you know it's not important enough to you, that you're not going to let anybody know until just stop. Just realize that nobody else is going to want to work with you with that type of attitude, period. I know I don't. And now that I have some say into what shows I want to do and who we should have on our stage, if you behave like this, I don't want you on my stage. Because that tells me it's not important to you enough for you to do what it takes to be there like you said you would. We were counting on you, on this person, who decided that she's too important for us. Yeah? How's that? Well, you are no longer important to us. Or at least to me. I don't want to see you on my stage ever again. If it does happen and I'm vetoed and it does, I will still give you the best possible sound. But you are not going to want to play nice with me. Because that was like the cheapest, most infantile, childish thing you could do as a performer. Right? The only other jerk like this would have been Axl Rose. He canceled more shows than he performed and still made money. Why the hell do we put up with this? We don't put up with it with our plumber. We get pissed when the cable guy is late. How about when your artist, your headliner, decides that it's not important enough to even call until less than an hour before showtime? Oh, I'm not going to make it. That's right. You're not going to make it at all. All you had to do was show up. That's all you had to do. Was just honor the commitment that you had made to be part of that program. But obviously you're too important for that. Whew. Sorry, that really pisses me off because I put at least 2 to 3 hours of work into each one of those shows before the doors ever open. And this person was just too important. Didn't even bother to show up. I tell you what, we'll have a little contest. If you can guess who this person is I am referring to and can type their name into the chat window, I will get you for free. I will pay for it myself because I know a guy. The book, We Are Not Broken, by Eric, I forget his last name. What is Eric's last name, Andrew? Andrew's not listening. I thought he was. Come on. Eric, come on. Load it. Eric Garcia. We will get you a signed copy of We're Not Broken, Changing the Autism Conversation, to the first person, maybe more, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how expensive the books are. If you type into the chat who this person is that I'm guessing, that I'm referring to, I'm not guessing. I know the person, and they're not part of my show anymore. That's over with. That's one way to really upset your tech crew, and we go through a lot of work, we go through a lot of energy to make these things happen, and to not show up, that was rude, and it really pissed me off. So, I tell you what, we're going to take an early break because I think we have some updates to the primary. That's what it was called, a primary election. That's right. So don't go nowhere. So we'll be right back after these messages on the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Don't go nowhere.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Columbus County fire victim is hospitalized in critical condition following an explosion at a motel. It happened at the Budget Inn on North Brown Street in Chadbourn. Several people reported hearing an explosion around 4:30 Wednesday morning. When police arrived, they found a man on the ground suffering from severe burns. He was airlifted to the UNC Burn Center in Chapel Hill and remains in critical condition. One Chadbourn officer is credited with saving a person from the burning building. And one person is in custody after leading officers on a chase yesterday evening. According to the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office, it began when a car was reported stolen from the Walmart at Monkey Junction. When a sheriff's deputy tried to pull over the stolen car, the driver stepped on the gas and took off. Law enforcement used a pit maneuver, forcing the car to stop in the vicinity of Carolina Beach Road and Sanders Road. A male driver and a female passenger tried to run away. The male driver was taken into custody. No one was hurt. Wrightsville Beach Ocean Rescue is getting ready for Memorial Day weekend and one of their busiest seasons in years. The agency is training new recruits in its rescue program. They're teaching lifeguards how to save people in danger of drowning by conducting drilling rescues until the moves become second nature. Lifeguards go through rigorous training, swimming, running, and rescuing volunteer victims for hours in the 2 weeks leading up to Memorial Day. Those new recruits will hit the beaches Memorial Day, patrolling the waters every day from 10 to 5 through Labor Day. And we might not all be champions, but the Braves certainly were last season. The World Series trophy is making a stop in Wilmington today. Fans can enjoy one of the best trophies in baseball at Mayfair from 4 to 7 p.m. The Atlanta Braves have 151 stops on their agenda to honor 151 years of Braves baseball. Fans can take pictures with the trophy, and admission is free. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of 2022 as our high temperatures away from the coast climb into the middle 90s. And this will be the first time the Wilmington area sees highs climbing into the low 90s. Coastal areas will get into the middle 80s later today, and we will have to watch for an isolated storm, some of which could pack a punch with gusty winds and even some small hail. And overnight tonight, going to be warm and muggy under mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping down into the upper 60s and the low 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
I'm Ben Utek. I played high school, college, and pro football, helping my team win the 2006 championship. It was an amazing day, but it can't compare to the joy I feel every day with my loving wife and 3 beautiful daughters. My football career ended after I suffered my 5th concussion. Did you know that over 1 million athletes suffer a concussion each year? That includes boys and girls, every age, every type and level of sport. It isn't always clear that a player has had a concussion, so parents, athletes, and coaches need to learn about concussion signs and symptoms. The American Academy of Neurology recommends athletes thought to have a concussion be immediately removed from play and not returned until assessed by a healthcare professional trained in concussion. This isn't just about sports. It's about your brain. When in doubt, sit it out. Learn more at aan.com/concussion. That's aan.com/concussion. A message from the American Academy of Neurology.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Find access to it, and unfortunately, that's what they're doing. And unfortunately, what also happens...
Oh, wait, we're live. I got surprised by the clock as well. Hey, welcome back to the Asylum. As I promised, Mr. Bill Moore, we are discussing one of the flaws in my cap, which is paying for beach access. They say it's free beach access. It's not free. It's $5 an hour parking. So that if you want to go to a beach, you're paying for it. But that's not why Bill is here. Bill is here because he is now changing his hats from primary to actual, what are they going to call this one? An actual election? Primary?
November election.
The November election, the entertainment division of the military industrial complex will be holding a massive rally in November.
And hopefully everybody will take their turn to vote in it, no matter which side you're on.
Well, how did it work out this time? I'm going to guess voter turnout is in the neighborhood of 7%.
Actually, you're way off.
What? No.
The
I'm too
surprise
good to be that far off.
You know, it's interesting, you know, and I was actually talking to my good friend Will Connect, who's the chair of New Hanover, and our numbers are almost similar as far as percentages. I'm just a little bit higher, but not significantly. The Republicans proved what they traditionally have done, which they did not do, obviously, when we had the pandemic. But Republicans tend to believe in Election Day, and the greater majority who are going to vote will vote on Election Day and not any other day. I will give you an example. In Brunswick, through all of our early voting, which is like 16 days of it, we ended up having a total Republicans and Democrats of about 9,600 total voters. But when we came to Election Day or primary day, which was last Tuesday, we broke 22,000 voters.
And you didn't have any I voted stickers.
That's a state thing. That's not us.
Oh, okay. So I need to correct my friend Andrew. He was very upset, having put up with me to get his morning show in, and then he took off while I was on the air to go vote, and he did the whole voting thing, and he's standing there awkwardly at the ballot, the little sloop thing that takes your ballot.
Tabulator.
Yeah.
The tabulator.
And normally they take your ballot and they give you the sticker. It's sort of like your receipt. He did not get one, and immediately called me on the station on his way home, and went off like a Roman candle. It was quite entertaining, actually, for me anyway. But that's a state thing. So now we have to go after the state to provide adequate number of I voted stickers so that Andrew will feel much better about his civic duty.
And I would tell you that in Brunswick County, we gave out stickers.
But you also got to keep the pin.
That's true too. I mean, that's a fine way we do things nowadays because we're so worried about a pandemic that 99% of the people recover from.
Yeah,
I wish we had great with other diseases.
I'm not even going to touch that one. So in Brunswick County, you had, 7 different election positions?
We had the statewide elections, which were everybody had a chance to vote for the Senate, for our congressmen, also for several of the judgeships, the statewide judgeships. And then we had a few local races. We had county commissioner and we had school boards. So of all those, we turned out a great number. I mean, we had just breaking 18%. And when talking with Will from New Hanover, he was just under 18%. But, to be fair, statistically, there are more voters in New Hanover than there are in Brunswick by about 50, 60,000 voters. So, those numbers are a little misleading unless you clarify that with that statement, because Will's numbers he probably had more physical voters than I did. But, so percentages don't exactly tell you everything.
Right. Now, in your area, I'm guessing Madison Cawthorn was not in that collection.
No, in our area here, it was a David Rouser one.
And how did that go?
David blew his opponent away probably 70% of the voting, at least in our county. And I think overall he did extremely well. But then again, he was Trump endorsed.
Do you think that made the difference?
Oh, I know it did. If you look at Trump's numbers right now, he went into this election at 58-1. And I think the last numbers I heard yesterday, he's like 70-something-4. So you got to say that those numbers mean something, because nobody gets that kind of endorsements. If you go back historically, and I think I see what he's up to. Being an older gentleman, or just a little older, I won't say gentleman because that's a relatively clarifying thing. But when you do that, when Nixon was defeated against Kennedy in the early 60s, he then spent his next years running around the country helping people get elected into varying offices. And then what happened when he turned around after all those years, and now he had all these people that owed him, and he got their support for the nomination, and he eventually won in 68. And Trump is doing the same thing he is, and I think he's doing, as far as his percentages, he's probably a little bit better.
I got to turn this thing back on, because sometimes when I talk, it interrupts what you're doing. So what are some of the other highlights from the results? Because you had quite the party there when I was there Tuesday night. You had pizza, you had wings, you had mozzarella sticks, you had sandwiches.
Yeah, and all that were brought in by volunteers, which is the nice part of it. What you had going on, I think, was the big take from this is, again, with a Trump-endorsed candidate. When you look at the U.S. Senate race, we had 14 candidates running for election there. And Ted Budd won with about 60% of the vote. And that's a phenomenal number with 14 candidates. Again, Trump endorsed.
That's hard to get 30%.
30% plus 1 is the threshold when there are more than 2 people running. So, and actually what's interesting is, and through the entire state of North Carolina, with that lower threshold, there are no runoff elections.
Throughout the state?
Throughout the state. And if you actually look at it, in 2018, that law changed. It used to be 40%. You had to get 40%.
So we're lowering the bar.
So we did statewide lowered the bar to 30%. And
now historically, that doesn't work out too well. Like when we lowered the bar with education and eliminated civics, we've obviously run into a problem. Do you think that might be in effect here?
I don't think it adequately expresses the will of the people. If you get 30% plus 1, that means 2/3 of the people in your party weren't supporting it.
Wow, yeah, that is So at 40%, at least you have a 60-40 split rather than 70-30.
Yeah, and even at that point, if you don't reach the 40%, they take the top couple and they do a head-to-head runoff. So you're eventually going to get to a 50-50 split. Why don't they do it? Well, the cost of the thing. You've got to remember, when you do an election, the state and the counties have to pay for that whole setup to run again. And if it's one candidate running, for example, a statewide candidate, you're not going to get a big turnout for one person. And you're going to still open all those polls and pay all those workers. You still got to do some sort of early voting. And you got the cost of actually printing the ballots, counting them, and doing that other stuff. In addition to that, the candidates have to spend a lot of extra money. They do two budgets. They do a budget primary, and then if they're lucky to win, they have a budget for general election. And if you got to do that again, for example, if we had a runoff yesterday or Tuesday, that would have been held in July, because you got to give people time to get organized. So that would mean that the two people would be campaigning in a primary against each other for another couple of months. And then by the time that's settled, you've only got a few months to get ready for the general and take on your opponent from the other party. So in the long term, I think, what I'd love to see is people starting to get together and realize we don't need 14 candidates. We need to just decide on, you can't run because of your ego. You need to run if you got a real chance to win.
Wait. Say that again?
Sorry? You shouldn't run because of your ego. You need to run if you got a message to spend and you got a reasonable chance of pulling it off.
One more time for the people in the back.
Okay. You don't need to run because of your ego. You need to run if you have a message you want to get out there and you got a reasonable chance of pulling it off. Because all you're doing is watering down something that just not going to work. And again, the parties do not choose candidates; the people do. So you got a right to run. But I'll give you an example. When you go back, even to the election of Tillis, the first time he ran, it was to get the nomination. There was like 6 or 7 people running. 4 of them were very, very conservative. Senator Tillis tends to be conservative, center right, but not necessarily as far right as the others. And they will split the vote, and he won the primary. They split the hard right side, and he walked in. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad; it's just a fact. So,
and that's part of the complication of it all.
If you look on the other side of the house, and I was looking at the numbers early on yesterday, Tuesday, for the Democrats, and they had 11 people running. But I think once you're on the ballot, it's difficult to get your name off. But I think they convinced a lot of people to just withdraw and tell their people to throw their weight behind one person. In this case, it's Sherry Beasley, who's running on the Democratic side for the U.S. Senate. And the reason I say that is because when you look at returns coming out, 11 candidates, she was running 4 and 5 figures, and they hadn't hit 3 figures yet.
Wow.
And all of the 10 were at 70, 80 votes, maybe 90, 62. So it was obvious that they got together and they decided at some point, I can't get off the ballot, but I'm going to tell my people that, really we need to unite behind someone else. And that's, I think, what happened on their side. Now, I'm glad that Ted Budd pulled it out. We're looking forward to support the entire slate as we go forward. In Brunswick, we have a rather unique situation. I have 7 people that will be on my ballot unopposed.
You're going to have 7 people again, what?
I have 7 people running in November for election at varying levels, mostly, local, that are unopposed.
Oh.
They have no Democratic. So they're basically, as long as they go in and vote for themselves, it's over.
Or get arrested.
Well, yeah, just don't vote often. Just vote once. This is usually a good idea.
Well, I was meaning it's still not entirely clear what's happening in, I think it's in Charlotte. There was a couple of people on the ballot who were convicted of felony bribery and embezzlement while in office, are now running for those same offices.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the laws are specific about certain things that they can do and cannot do. For another thing, for example, with that, what was interesting, at least in Brunswick, is we had a small amount of people walking in from, for example, the Democratic Party, and they wanted to vote Republican. in the Republican ballot. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, I guess, the law says if you're a member of a party, you can only have the ballot for that party. However, if you're unaffiliated, you can ask for either. And I will tell you on a personal note, and this is just me talking, I have a problem with that in that why should someone not part of the party have the right to choose who the party's candidates are? If you want to join the party, do what you want to do. I all support that. But, and I would tell you, and as far as we're concerned, in Brunswick, when the unaffiliated asked for ballots, we pulled a 2-to-1 ratio that they asked for Republican ballots. So that's an excellent sign for November that, I'm looking for that red wave and maybe even a red tsunami.
Oh, scary.
Yeah, I know I'm the Republican chair. I'm supposed to be rooting for my Republican.
I just have this flashback to like a Star Trek every Star Trek episode where the red shirt guy is the one who gets killed on the foreign planet, on the alien planet. So a red tsunami of Star Trek engineers being, sent to their demise, just, a red tsunami is...
that the other night. There was actually a guy in a blue shirt that got wiped out.
Oh.
Yeah, and I actually did what you said. I said, he's not in a red shirt. What happened? What's going on with that? But
right,
he was actually in a blue shirt. But I knew when they landed on the end, he never knew who the guy was, and he never said 2 words. He had no life expectancy.
Right, they don't even get a name on the script. I think it's like, if you've ever seen Galaxy Quest.
Yep.
And they called the other guy that was supposed to die, they just called him Guy. He didn't have a name. It was just Guy. I thought that was hilarious.
And Ensign, back on the ship to go report that the ensign died.
Ensign, yeah, that guy. So what surprises, were there any surprises Tuesday as a result of Tuesday?
Not on our side. I think the Republican side, I think the nice part about it, and I just sent a letter out to all my people, is that we had a real deep bench on this election. And, I would have been pretty much happy whoever won because they were all good people. And, I got to tell you that what was nice about it is you see people running against each other. And, 99% of the time they'll sit down, they talk to each other, they have coffee with each other. It's not personal. They're just putting out, they're just trying to win an election, but they don't hold it against their opponent. And I have to tell you, we had great people running, and I've actually encouraged them to stay involved and consider running for another office in another 2 years. So, I'm very pleased with our results.
And a number of the candidates that you had on the show seemed to be involved in their communities as well, which was very comforting.
Yeah, and I've already heard from about a third of the candidates that didn't win this time, and they've indicated that they're going to stay involved and they want to. What can they do to help for the November election? So that general election is going to be interesting, and it's a good sign that people are staying with us because you need to. A lot of these candidates are next generation, so to speak, and we need to make sure we have all levels of age, if you will, involved in the party because there's an old line about Republicans being run by old white men, which is no longer true, but we're all going to die out sooner or later, so we need another generation to take over from us. And I'm glad to see the party is outreaching in a lot of directions, in minority communities, and we're getting some very positive responses.
And the Teenage Republicans is also another well of resources to draw from.
Our TARS kids are just phenomenal. They're all high school kids, and anything you need done, they're there for you. If it's serving, if it's helping check people into the line, if it's carrying stuff, if it's working for a candidate, they're there helping, which is just, I look at that generation and I get a lot of hope for the future.
Even if they're thrown up onto the dais, I think it's how it's pronounced, and
Yep.
Thrust into the front line to banter with Mr. Bill Moore. That was pretty interesting because Bill nor Mary were going to take any of those questions. They all gave it to him and said, "Yeah, you roast Bill."
Yep, and he did.
That was a lot of fun.
And he was, and Isaac is a great kid. He's the president of our TARS group. And he, their questions were on point. And what I liked about that, he told me afterwards, he called all his TARS leadership and said, all right, what kind of questions do we need to put together that are good, that are going to question them and challenge them? So they took it very seriously, and down the road we'll be bringing them in on and off to help out either questioning or come back on the show and just talk, because their opinions are well founded, and they're the generation that's going to be running this place in about 30 years.
And it should give hope, because had it been me, right, at the same age or whatever, doing this, getting involved, my questions would have been along the lines of, what's your favorite dinosaur, right? Because I just didn't have the sophistication available to say, what are your issues on education or whatever. I would have been stuck. What's your favorite spaghetti, and why isn't it Chef Boyardee? I mean, that's about the limit of what I was able to process as a kid.
Yeah, and I agree with you. My questions would have went in two directions. What about that nice looking car over there? And does your friend have a sister?
We've been through that. And at least these kids are probably reading books that don't come with pictures like Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, right?
Yeah, you and I grew up with comic books. They have graphic novels.
Mangas. Now, it's interesting. I grew up with something that he didn't, though. I had to take an entire course just on the Declaration of Independence, and I had to take an entire other course just on the Constitution. It was a 2-semester course called Civics 1 and 2, and apparently that was eliminated about 35, 40 years ago.
Well, they have some variations of it, but one of the things that I push, and I'm a retired principal, so I kind of watched this thing going on for years. And one of the things that school boards can do, and they have the power and they don't do it, so I blame it on them, the leadership. For example, the state says you need 20 credits to graduate. There's nothing wrong with the local board saying, no, you need 21 and a half credits, and force them to take a half credit in budgeting and learning how to spend money and do checking accounts and things like this.
Change a tire.
All that kind of good stuff. Even learning, if you borrow money, how do you pay it back, how the interest rate works. Because I had to laugh. I was reading some guy the other day online who was complaining that his student loans were due, and they're not like loans for a mortgage, because I paid all this money for the first year and I only took $36 off the principal. And I'm laughing at myself going, welcome to the real world. Interest is always paid first. But he had no clue.
Yep, and they often, and I did learn this in school, but it's not taught anymore, how the predatory nature of how those loans, some of the loans are set up that even if you pay extra, you still have to pay the interest on the loan. Even if you pay down the principal of the loan, you still owe, because the principal or the interest was already calculated before the loan was released.
Well, yeah, but there is, if you do the loan correctly, you can get a statement in there that allows you to make extra payments, which apply directly to principal, which does cut back on your interest.
But if you don't know that, and it's not taught to you, you can be preyed upon by the unscrupulous, who tell you that it's a great deal because it's a lower interest rate, without telling you that there's no way to avoid paying that entire interest.
Right. And I give and I do that a lot with people. One of my favorite things to do with kids, who, especially if some are signaling they're going to drop out of school and leave, and they're going to go out on their own because they can earn $8 or $9 an hour or $10 an hour.
And they got all the answers.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do with them is I'll sit them down and I make them develop a budget. Let's assume for a minute you're on your own. What's your rent? You gonna have a car? How much gas are you gonna put into it? What's your car payment? What about insurance?
Do you eat?
You got to clean your clothes, food. Are you going to go out a little bit? Do you need money for this? Then when you total it up, and then you take their $10 an hour. I give them $10 an hour, and I say, all right, let's multiply times a 40-hour week, and then you compare the two, and they all look at you. I can't live on that. Well, that's the point. There are numbers out there that prove that a high school diploma will give you will bring you $300,000 extra money into your lifetime earnings. And beyond that, if you get an associate's degree, it can add up to, or a bachelor's degree will get up another $600,000 to your money. And beyond that, it'll add in proportionally. But kids need to see those numbers in real world. And you don't do it with elementary kids, you do it with high school kids.
But even I think that's even overshooting it. Like Mike Rowe pointed out that, an electrician that has, just a 2-year associate's degree is able to make that kind of money. But
Yes.
the thing that's not being taught, and the part that I think really needs to be emphasized is, you're in high school and you're working a day job and you bother to not show up when you were committed to do so. This isn't, these are things that need to be taught, that your integrity, your name, and your future is based on your behavior, that if you don't show up to work, if you show up, I was raised with, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, it's unacceptable.
Well, you were also raised with the fact that, I know my father put it in, most of our generation did, your word is your bond. So
Exactly.
If you give someone you're
So,
going to be there.
Participation trophies seem to take that away. They seem to dilute the entire concept of being reliable.
Well, yeah, but what we have now, and unfortunately I see it developing as a culture, no one is personally responsible. It's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
And until you start getting the concept over, you're responsible for your own decisions and actions. There's a choice every time you do something. And you need to take the consequences or the benefits, depending on what decision you make.
Because that's part of the Andrews thing, was that, we are free to say whatever we want, but we are not free of the consequences.
Yeah. As long as you can do whatever you choose to do, but you're going to have to accept what the consequences are. If you do something wrong, the consequences that you're going to have to pay for. If it's illegal, you may go to jail, and you can't complain about going because you made a decision to do something and live with it. And unfortunately, we don't teach that. What we teach now in a culture is, well, I had no choice because I'm a permanent victim, or I had no choice because my friend made me do it because he told me, he called me a chicken if I didn't do it. You made a decision. Live with it.
Yep. And it's usually afterwards when they try to, express their remorsefulness. I wouldn't have done this had I not.
Yeah. If I knew I was going to go to jail, what do you think?
And that's where a
You're
lot
gonna
of
get a
people are
medal?
like, you're not mad that, you're not upset that you did this. You're upset that you got caught.
Yes. That's the big, I would do it again if I wasn't going to get caught. But, you caught me. And why did you catch me and not the other guys? I should be let free because you didn't catch everybody else that did it.
Right. When you
that's
pulled
like
me over doing 65 and a 55, 4 people passed us doing 70. And yet you're mad at
Yep.
me. Okay.
Excellent point. That's a perfect example.
And it's like, why? Instead of being concerned about what it is that I'm doing, you should be concerned about why it is you are concerned about what it is that I am doing.
I agree.
Right? So I'm trying to tie this back into the voting, because it does seem to have, like, the vote itself is not something we individually share except by choice, right? It's not like I can go online and say, oh, look, Bill voted for so-and-so.
No, you can't, and thank God for that. Your vote is still private and personal, and you have the decision to share it. Nobody else should or be able to get to it. However, it's a privilege and a right, and when people don't exercise it, we lose something in a democracy. People, we have a representative democracy, which means we elect people to make decisions. We do not have what we call mob mentality, where whatever the mob wants to do, that's what happens. Because that's tyranny for the individual. Representative government means you elect somebody who so hopefully has most of your beliefs, and you let them represent you long term. You do not make the decisions from that point on. So that's why voting is that important. You are picking people who will make decisions that affect your life. And I will tell you this, it's nice to worry about, many people worry about the national and even the state level, but local is where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you have school boards, you have county commissioners, all these positions probably have a bigger effect on you and your wallet long term than anything else going on. Property taxes, school taxes, sales tax, all that's decided at the local level. And too many people don't get involved and vote and go to meetings and express their desires.
That's why we're here.
Yes, sir. And we're going to keep pounding that drum until people either listen or my drum head breaks.
Well, I think we have a ways to go on that, because, you're wrapped pretty tight, so I don't think that drum's going to pop anytime soon.
And you know what? I have the ability to get another drone. And then if I get another, it'll be a bigger one.
Well then, no shortage there.
Okay, my friend.
Well, man, I appreciate your time, and thanks for checking in and giving us a bit of an update, and knowing that we have a good percentage of voters, and that that we aren't going to be spending extra money on a runoff.
But it's a good number that finally turned out. But again, I'll just close with one thought: 18% of the county decided who was going to run for positions in November. So not even a quarter of the people decided who the candidates were. So, people, you need to get out there and make those decisions early on. Anyway, thanks for having me on, my friend.
Well, thanks for being here, and we will see you on Tuesday, if not before.
I'll talk to you Monday, all right?
Monday and Tuesday, that's right.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick break and pay some bills, catch up on the news, weather, and other stuff. So please, don't go nowhere. The Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. We'll be right back.
Keeping Southport informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
My husband had a gun. Him and his friends would go shooting. The ammunition, unfortunately, was not stored separately. In a million years, we never thought that Emily could. There's a hole in our family that can never, ever be filled.
63 Americans a day die by gun suicide. With safe gun storage, we can give our loved ones a second chance at life. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Columbus County fire victim is hospitalized in critical condition following an explosion at a motel. It happened at the Budget Inn on North Brown Street in Chadbourn. Several people reported hearing an explosion around 4:30 Wednesday morning. When police arrived, they found a man on the ground suffering from severe burns. He was airlifted to the UNC Burn Center in Chapel Hill and remains in critical condition. One Chadbourn officer is credited with saving a person from the burning building. And one person is in custody after leading officers on a chase yesterday evening. According to the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office, it began when a car was reported stolen from the Walmart at Monkey Junction. When a sheriff's deputy tried to pull over the stolen car, the driver stepped on the gas and took off. Law enforcement used a pit maneuver, forcing the car to stop in the vicinity of Carolina Beach Road and Sanders Road. A male driver and a female passenger tried to run away. The male driver was taken into custody. No one was hurt. Wrightsville Beach Ocean Rescue is getting ready for Memorial Day weekend and one of their busiest seasons in years. The agency is training new recruits in its rescue program. They're teaching lifeguards how to save people in danger of drowning by conducting drilling rescues until the moves become second nature. Lifeguards go through rigorous training, swimming, running, and rescuing volunteer victims for hours in the 2 weeks leading up to Memorial Day. Those new recruits will hit the beaches Memorial Day, patrolling the waters every day from 10 to 5 through Labor Day. And we might not all be champions, but the Braves certainly were last season. The World Series trophy is making a stop in Wilmington today. Fans can enjoy one of the best trophies in baseball at Mayfair from 4 to 7 p.m. The Atlanta Braves have 151 stops on their agenda to honor 151 years of Braves baseball. Fans can take pictures with the trophy, and admission is free. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of 2022 as our high temperatures away from the coast climb into the middle 90s. And this will be the first time the Wilmington area sees highs climbing into the low 90s. Coastal areas will get into the middle 80s later today. And we will have to watch for an isolated storm, some of which could pack a punch with gusty winds and even some small hail. And overnight tonight, going to be warm and muggy under mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping down into the upper 60s and the low 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Listen to Tom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, there it is. Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. BigTalker.live is the website. Send us an email with any, please send us an email with any comments, questions, concerns, critiques, compliments, or questions you may have. Because we want to improve and we can't do it without your help. Therefore, it's very important that you write to us right now. And boom. That's right. Wind that puppy down. Anyway, 9 o'clock. Lots of news. Lots of other stuff happening. It was fun. Tuesday night was quite the celebration. Distractions everywhere. Last night was a whole lot of fun with Voice in the Pen. Again, with distractions of some diva that decided not to show up. If anybody can guess the name of the person to whom I am referring, I will give you a signed copy of We're Not Broken by Eric Garcia. So I'll pay for it. I'll even go through the, hey, Andrew, do me a favor. Get this signed so I can give it to the person. And the giveaway, I think, was, I don't know if it's over, but there was a giveaway yesterday. A signature. I'm not sure how it all worked. Andrew might be on a little later to help me understand what the entire contest was about. But as we were discussing with Bill, and of course my lamentation of, if you make a commitment, right, think that commitment through. And this commitment applies to everything, whether it's a puppy, a partner, a marriage, purchasing a home, or making a commitment to perform, which can really ruin, a lot of people's day. I mean, I had been there for hours, and this person decides to call it literally within 30 minutes of showtime to say, oh, I just don't feel like it. I don't know what the excuse was. Maybe there's a limb missing that I don't know about, but short of that, I don't think we're going to be working with that person anymore. Because even if you're a beginner, right, and you've never done this before and you're scared out of your mind and you're shaking and maybe you're not solid on all your notes, at least you're there. At least you're doing what you said you're going to do. That to me is worth way more than somebody who is, published or whatever the term is and doesn't even bother. I mean, this person could use a lot of humility in their lives right about now, and digging ditches or something along those lines so that this person can realize that they are no more special than anyone else. And I think that's what we lost the sense of in community when, we were a younger nation. We relied on each other. Now we prey on each other. What happened? Right? Like, as much of the butt of jokes that Amish tend to be, What other community brings that many people together just to raise their neighbor's barn? No. We have to pay somebody to come and do that stuff. The Amish, they do it together. They, if we're going to learn anything about community, we need to look at the communities that are still alive, because our communities are dead, sterilized, terrified, really, to the point that very few people even know their next door neighbor or the person across the street. In some of these more protected neighborhoods, that's less true, right? Because, everybody there is in the same little prison. I mean, that's what I would consider. You're in a gated community, and everything that you do has been, there is no freedom, right? Some of these gated communities, all your lawns must be exactly a quarter of an inch. All your houses must be the same color. You can't drive any car that's not, factory specific. You can't have a boat. You can't have, you can't work in your yard. All your freedoms are being squashed by an HOA. And I consider that more of a prison than I do here, where if I need to change out the brakes in my car, nobody's going to throw a fit. I'm not going to have Karen coming up at me saying, "Oh my God, your grass is a half an inch. Are you ever going to trim this mess?" Right? We have a very warped sense of what freedom is. We've watered the term down that it means less than being conservative or liberal or progressive. My God, being progressive. I mean, here's a concept in terms of progressive. Space exploration has been a progressive series of events. Each launch from the 1950s through today is progress. A progression, right? The first SpaceX boosters, they tried to land and they didn't quite land upright. I mean, Elon's got a great sense of humor, if nothing else. If you go onto the SpaceX website, YouTube page, anyway, they have proudly displayed a number of their failure videos. And he points out, it is through failure do we succeed, do we learn, do we progress. So there seems to be a lot of, oh my God, the progressive movement, oh my God, this, we've ruined the strength of those words. We've ruined the power. We've ruined the meaning of those words. We've perverted them to the point that it's almost an insult. It's a pejorative term now, more so than it is an ideological term. Being conservative, oh my God, that just means you're a MAGA man. Or, oh my God, you're a progressive Democrat liberal. Oh my God, I can't stand you. I think we missed the point that the community is going to be made of all of this stuff, right? So people that have more of a social pull to want to help their social community should be given those resources. And we'll be having that discussion next week, I believe, with Dr. Dalton of the Eden Village Project. That being conservative or being liberal, it's an issue that in the first place should not exist. And in the second place is an issue that we seem to have a hard time coming to terms with, coming to some sort of solution. And some people have figured it out. The Low Income Housing Institute of Seattle, Washington, for example, we had a nice chat with Aaron Long, who gave us some great insights that a lot of it is encouragement. Give them something. And a lot of it is stability. Right? Because some of the cats in the homeless situation, in this particular example, require a little bit more care than, say, your average homeowner who's able to go to work and hold a job and that sort of thing. Some of these cats are mentally bent, and they require more support services at a more active, direct level. I think more people could use it, but for those that are getting by without it, fine. But for the ones that are having trouble holding a job and finding a place to live, we can offer them some sort of help, a path, a potential, a way out, right? so that you don't have to sleep in the bushes in front of the public library down on 3rd Street and annoy and scare the hell out of every tourist that comes through there. They want to see the boat, not you. They will gladly pay money in the gift shop, but if they're having to walk the gauntlet of every jackhole between, Chestnut and Grace, begging for money, cigarettes, and everything else while littering the entire downtown population with handouts, right? Because these other good Samaritans who, in their own heart, think they're doing good, and they are delivering food to these people who are already incapable of taking care of themselves. So it's the whole reason why you don't feed the animals at the zoo. It's not. It gives them absolutely no reason, right, to improve themselves. As was pointed out in a number of stories throughout the history of America and the world, that people tend to rise to the challenge presented, if it's made important to them. The River Was Wide is a great example of that. I read the book. I don't think the book has the same title, but the idea is the same. Inner city school, hey, let's raise the bar. And holy cow, it worked. Right? That's pretty amazing. ¿Qué es calculus? That was one of my favorite lines in that movie. Because the guy's asking what's calculus, and within a year, he is in a math competition and owning it. But on the first day, ¿qué es calculus? What is calculus? Not everybody understands calculus. Nobody, not very many people are that curious just to understand calculus for its own, on its own. What trigonometry is, what calculus is, how it relates to our relationship in the heavens. We are part of those heavens. Believe it or not, our little spinning rock is spinning through space in the heavens. And it's absolutely awe-inspiring to stand in my yard at almost midnight during the full lunar eclipse. We're not going to see one again for another, 2 or 3 years. And to understand all of, to really experience all of the elements, all of the celestial mechanics that come together for that 90-minute ride through the shadow of the earth. I think that's cool. I think that's cooler than a squat truck. Because that's an experience. That's being in touch with the cosmos of which we are a part. We are stardust, right? Everything that every atom in our body, every molecule in our body is made possible only through the results of the explosion that created our star and our solar system. That should be amazing enough as it is. There is no need to tie any entity to it. Celestial mechanics simply are. And it's magical all on its own right. And I don't think I had an argument or discussion, conversation with somebody who was trying to tell me that the rainbow was special to him because of some story in a book and such. And how is it that I could see the same rainbow, understanding that there's refraction happening at 42 degrees from my angle of incidence? He didn't like my explanation of a rainbow at all. But my response was, it's no less magical to me. If anything, it's more magical because I happen to be in the unique, exact spot that at 42 degrees, no matter which way I look, I see rainbow. I understand how the rainbow works. I understand the polarization of the light inside and outside the rainbow. And the double rainbow, what that whitish area is and why it's real clear between the two rainbows. And then it's again all scattered white light. Dr. Feynman told me about this. And it's no less magical because all of those elements must combine exactly, uniquely, correctly for me to see that rainbow. No less magical I think even more magical because I understand it completely. There is no mystery to it, and yet there it is. Right? That's some of the magic we're missing. And when trying this back to the community, we tend to look at this and separate ourselves based on that same experience. Because this person was trying to tell me that I was going to hell because I didn't believe in the book version of the rainbow. And I told him that if I'm going to hell, I will probably be in good company. Because I want to be able to talk with people who understand how an orbit works. I want people who understand hydrological issues and how rain precipitates, percolates, and carries contaminants, as we've discussed with Dr. Cahoon. How this Earth works. It's an amazing rock. It's a very unique rock from all the other rocks that we've seen floating out in the heavens. Whether they're made of hydrogen and burning like the one we have in the center of our solar system, or if it's some other lit rock, 200-300, it's so old that its light is just now getting to us. We don't seem to be able to wrap our heads around the ridiculousness of alien stuff, right? Because think about it. If these aliens came from a planet that far away, it would have taken them, if they traveled at the speed of light, 100 million years to get here. Our Earth was not here 100 million years ago. So they would not have had anything to aim for had they launched off at their planet 100 million years ago, right? We can aim for Mars because we can see it. We know it's there. There's absolutely no guarantee in the 12 minutes it takes to get from here to there, or whatever, 8 minutes from light to get from the sun to the Earth. So however long it takes to launch from Mars, circle the moon, launch out, or gravity assist out to Mars, it might take 2 or 3 months. There's absolutely no guarantee it's going to be there when we get there. We're pretty confident, right? But if we're looking out into the heavens and we see a star that piques our interest, and we say, hey, let's send a probe to that star. Now, we cannot travel at the speed of light, so if that star is 2 light years away, which is billions of miles, it's taken Voyager 50 years to get where it's at. You feel me? And it's only busted the heliopause. So to get to the next star is probably going to take another 100, 150 years at least to go 2 light years, right? It's going to longer than that at our greatest speeds. That we can't guarantee that whatever we've aimed at is going to be there. That sun could explode. I mean, we have a pretty good idea of where a star is on its life cycle, based on its blue shift and what it's burning, right? Is it fusing hydrogen into carbon at this point, or hydrogen into helium, and then I forget whichever one into carbon, and then into iron, because that's the point where the star is pretty much guaranteed a death, a very quick, rapid, energetic, and spectacular death. It'll happen to our own sun. So I would even posit that if there had been any other civilizations, they were wiped out by their own star exploding. But here we are, at the top of the food chain on this one little rock, and we've got it all figured out to the point that we are going to separate and vilify each other based on which book we read. That just does not make any sense to me. We have this knowledge, and we have the ability to explore it and to dispel. You can add all the nifty, cutesy little stories you want to it, have little children's novels printed up about it. But at some point, there needs to be adult education to realize that, hey, this is what is. I mean, that's a fun book that was written a few thousand years ago to control taxes and to control the population. I mean, it was basically an opiate, right? Because they didn't have fentanyl back then, but they had religion. It was a form of control, still is. Maybe not as nefarious as once it was all the time, or at such a high percentage. But that's why I keep turning to the scientists, because I'm curious about the actual reality of, like, it. As a child, I'll relate this back 9 years old. And I'd been on an airplane, but I hadn't experienced an airplane, right? Because when you fly, for the most part, you never see the airplane. You never see the whole airplane in context. You walk through the little jetway, you sit on your little seat, you see the plane through a window here and there. But until you stand next to the tire of a 747 and realize this thing is freaking huge, then you start understanding that, okay, now I see that this tire weighs more than my family. How do we get this thing to stay in the air, right? Because if you toss a rock up in the air, it comes down pretty quickly. So the understanding of the dynamics of, or aerodynamics, right? Fluid dynamics, because air acts as a fluid at speed and pressure. You start understanding drag. You start understanding lift and thrust and gravity, the four forces of flight. And it starts introducing more information that starts playing out in other directions. Not that it made me any smarter, but it made me more aware. So the next time I looked at a small airplane and said, okay, I see it. I see the airplane. Independent of the aircraft, I see the airplane. I see the wing. I see the pressure difference that creates the lift on the wing. It's not magical. Birds aren't, birds are special. But the fact that we have understood what it takes to make something airborne, that's a trick. We figured that out. We figured out how to split an atom and generate enormous amounts of energy. Not that we've been entirely mature about it, but those scientific progressions have taught us more than we would have learned any other way. And as Neil deGrasse Tyson points out, even some of our greatest thinkers back in the day excluded God until they hit a point they didn't understand. And they had to say, of everything that I understand, everything that I have proven to this point, from here on, it must be in the hands of the gods. And then 20, 30 years later, or 100 years later, we start to understand the edge of that information. We learn at the fringe of our experience. And as a collective scientific experience, we've been able to push those boundaries to the point that we can now land rocket boosters upright. Now, SpaceX didn't do that in a vacuum, right? They have built their successes on the successes of previous missions. All the way back to the Apollo, Gemini. You can go back to Sputnik. You can go back to the V2s and the V1 rockets of World War II. That's where we started getting this information. You can take it back to the Wright brothers and start understanding aerodynamics. We kind of understood it because the faster a car went, the less stable it became. We started noticing that if you put a fin on your sailboat, the wind can push you. But if you are pushing yourself through the wind, suddenly you have the ability to control your pitch and your angle. All these little discoveries tied together are what's taking us to the moon. It's all of these little things together is why we have, 1,000 satellites circling the Earth so that we can use our global positioning technology to find cat pictures or whatever the hell it is you're doing with that small. I mean, there are billions of these devices that just weren't conceivable 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I was in college when the interwebs was being born. And it was still point to point that each computer system connected to, we didn't have a universal backbone like the like the web, but we had the ability to connect different computers using different connection protocols, and we built upon that. And at the time, just the thought of trying to do video in a digital world was just insane. The amount of bandwidth, the amount of data that needed to go through those little wires was just, no, you just can't do it. There's just way too much data in too small a pipe to make it work. Well, we managed to compress video down to smaller sizes, and we've managed to up the size of the pipes that we're shoving all this data down to the point that your 4G phone is able to watch entire episodes of whatever your favorite Netflix is while riding a bus. And if you have AirPods, you know how small those things are. I grew up on speakers, right? 8 15-pound individual speaker drivers that went in your home stereo system. Now you can pop a pair of earbuds, or whatever they are, into your head. You get phenomenal sound from your same phone that's now streaming video wirelessly. You see what I'm saying? This is, when somebody uses or tries to use progressive as a pejorative term, I get bent. Because I'm like, okay, what kind of car are you driving? Why aren't you in a horse and buggy? If you're so against being progressive, why are you driving a car? Why aren't you walking? Why are you wearing fancy shoes? You should have some like handmade moccasins that are being held together with tanned hide. Because if progressive and progression is something that offends you, or is an affront, or is something to be condescended to, you misunderstand the word. And you've hijacked it, much like the word gay. Gay has become such a horrible word that people are terrified to sing some of the carols at Christmas. Don, we now are what? Really? Gay used to mean happy. Now it means enemy or problem or something else. Gay doesn't mean homosexual, by the way. Homosexual means homosexual. Gay, the first meaning, happy, joyful. Then it gets into the weird stuff that we humans have imparted on that word in the last 50 years. My grandparents would say, oh, what a gay festival. Can you say that now? No, because the language has been hijacked by people who are trying to make it more divisive, more difficult to get along. And the next thing you know, boom, Europe is in war. It doesn't help that we have language barriers, and of course we have jackholes who are like, I'm sorry, you must speak my language. Y'all just got to communicate. And at some point, you know, this is, I can't speak to that entire theater that's happening over there because I don't know enough. I'm not that kind of smart guy. You want to ask me about orbital mechanics? I can help you out to a point. Then I'll need to call Dr. Siegel and say, hey, help me fill in the gaps. But we don't seem to even have the capability of doing that for ourselves, to say, hey, I have discovered something I don't know. Where can I go to figure it out? And that's what's cool about tech, because it's pretty much cut and dry. Once you solve the problem, that problem is solved. It doesn't come back. But when it comes to human nature, interaction, politics, voting, policy, even just going to the grocery store, there is no sense of community anymore. We no longer understand what it is to be our neighbor's keeper. And worse yet, the part that's even, you know, the part that if anybody who had a belief in something out there, and that we are supposed to be reflections of his love, then there wouldn't be 10 dead in one afternoon. There wouldn't have been a shooting on Curry Beach. Could we be able to stop and say, wait a minute, before this gets any stupider, What's going on? Right? Your dog shit in my yard again, and I've had enough. I'm sorry. You know, that would have at least started a conversation. I don't know what it was about, but I could see it being something that stupid. We're like that. We are just like that. That's who we are. Right? Got a story here. Trying to make it feel better. I have a story for my friend Andrew if he pops on. I think he's being used as a content provider for many radio stations across the country, but TampaFP.com, the Free Press, Tampa Free Press. Yes, Florida, ladies and gentlemen. We are in Florida. We are about to talk about Florida man. Florida man fails to outswim deputies. Ha! Sarasota County, Florida. The Sarasota County... Take two. It's not going to let me read any of that. Stop that. I didn't want that in the first place. Thank you. Stop it. There we go. Florida man fails to outswim deputies after botched boat theft. That's the part I left out. Sarasota County Sheriff's Office arrested a man Thursday for an attempted boat theft after the aviation and canine units helped track him down in the Intercoastal Waterway. Just after 1 a.m. on May 5th, deputies responded to a report of an unknown man attempting to steal a boat docked over on Winton Street, West Winton Street in Inglewood. Before deputies arrived on the scene, the suspect jumped from the vessel and was seen by a witness swimming into the Intercoastal Waterway. The agency's aviation and canine units also responded and conducted a search using infrared equipment. The suspect, later identified as the Mensa candidate Matthew DiPaolo, 35, was spotted attempting to conceal himself underwater. Obviously, this man is a product of public education. DiPaolo of Inglewood Road in Port Charlotte is charged with attempted grand theft of a motor vehicle and resisting arrest with violence. He remains in custody under $15,000 bond. Yeah, I guess, and maybe Andrew's got somebody in his Rolodex who can help me with this. But I honestly believe that if the more effectively educated your community, the less likely the people in that community are to commit crime. That's I'm going to look into that. I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to look into that a little bit more, because that's got me kind of curious, you know. Maybe if we up our education, we can lower our crime rate. Man, wouldn't that be amazing?
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A Columbus County fire victim is hospitalized in critical condition following an explosion at a motel. It happened at the Budget Inn on North Brown Street in Chadbourn. Several people reported hearing an explosion around 4:30 Wednesday morning. When police arrived, they found a man on the ground suffering from severe burns. He was airlifted to the UNC Burn Center in Chapel Hill and remains in critical condition. One Chadbourn officer is credited with saving a person from the burning building. And one person is in custody after leading officers on a chase yesterday evening. According to the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office, it began when a car was reported stolen from the Walmart at Monkey Junction. When a sheriff's deputy tried to pull over the stolen car, the driver stepped on the gas and took off. Law enforcement used a pit maneuver, forcing the car to stop in the vicinity of Carolina Beach Road and Sanders Road. A male driver and a female passenger tried to run away. The male driver was taken into custody. No one was hurt. Wrightsville Beach Ocean Rescue is getting ready for Memorial Day weekend and one of their busiest seasons in years. The agency is training new recruits in its rescue program. They're teaching lifeguards how to save people in danger of drowning, by conducting drilling rescues until the moves become second nature. Lifeguards go through rigorous training, swimming, running, and rescuing volunteer victims for hours in the 2 weeks leading up to Memorial Day. Those new recruits will hit the beaches Memorial Day, patrolling the waters every day from 10 to 5 through Labor Day. And we might not all be champions, but the Braves certainly were last season. The World Series trophy is making a stop in Wilmington today. Fans can enjoy one of the best trophies in baseball at Mayfair from 4 to 7 p.m. The Atlanta Braves have 151 stops on their agenda to honor 151 years of Braves baseball. Fans can take pictures with the trophy, and admission is free. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for the hottest day of 2022 as our high temperatures away from the coast climb into the middle 90s. And this will be the first time the Wilmington area sees highs climbing into the low 90s. Coastal areas will get into the middle 80s later today, and we will have to watch for an isolated storm, some of which could pack a punch with gusty winds and even some small hail. And overnight tonight, going to be warm and muggy under mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping down into the upper 60s and the low 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Education is, to me anyway, education is the best weapon we have against crime. And I think my friend Andrew here, who's a much smarter person and a much deeper Rolodex and much better conversations, and a cohort.
Better looking, too.
Yeah. Here on the Big Talker Network, here on the Asylum. I'm glad he lets me do that. At least it's not the title fight music, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So I had just posited earlier, whoops, stop that computer, that crime would probably be reduced by a more effectively educated populace community. Am I out of order? Am I just completely out of my rocker here?
You're not. There's evidence to that, but I want to take this a little different angle.
Yeah?
Let's talk about community for a second.
Like what we don't have? Like what the Amish have?
I want to do something here. We read the names of we refuse when we have these mass shooters. We refuse to use their names. We don't use their names. We follow that policy. A lot of mainstream outlets do that too. We're not going to use their names because they want that attention. We're not going to give it to them. So when we covered Buffalo when it first happened, we read all the victims' names. I want to read you a couple of things about this community. All right. I want you to see if you can tell me the trend here. Okay. We know about Aaron Salter. That's the security guard. He was a retired cop. He actually hit the guy. He actually hit him center mass with his own weapon, but the guy had body armor on. Okay. So we know about him. Everybody's covering him. Ruth Whitfield, 86 years old. Okay.
Yeah,
her son was the fire commissioner in Buffalo.
Oh.
She was on her way to visit her husband, who's in a nursing home, because she's 86 and she's the healthy one. So she was going to go visit her husband in the nursing home.
And
she was
probably
picking
bring
up
him
food.
like a candy bar or something to make him smile.
Yep, Pearlie Young, 77 years old. All right. She was a mother, a grandmother. She was a church lady, and I mean that as the ultimate respect where I'm coming from. When you're a church lady, these are the elderly ladies that when you walk into the sanctuary at church for service, you must go talk to them. You don't walk past them without acknowledging their presence. That's what I'm talking about here. This is
They're
a
the
term of
ones who
respect.
walk the walk.
Word. These are the people that will. When you acted up in church, it never got to your parents because they took care of it. You know what I'm saying? She's a 77-year-old missionary, retired missionary church lady. Catherine Macy, 72. Another one of these. First thing they list on her obituary is where she went to church for over 40 years. Beautiful soul, right? She used to write for the Buffalo newspaper. Okay. She worked, her sister worked for the WBNS TV station there. She was one of the original media people for years in Buffalo. Deacon Hayward Patterson, you can tell by the title, church guy, right? He was the guy that would drive other people to church up and down, and he would do a lot of transportation up and down Jefferson Avenue, this neighborhood, right? Celeste Cheney, she's another one. Great-grandchild, cancer survivor, beat breast cancer. Roberta Drury's the one that's really tearing people up. She was only 32. She was in Buffalo because she was helping her brother who had just had a bone marrow transplant. That's why she was in town. Okay?
And this
Are you noticing a thread here yet?
Margaret
Morrison, mother and grandmother, right? Or grandfather, excuse me. I'm looking at the picture sideways the way it's on my screen. I apologize. Loved kids, and kids gravitated to him. He always had children around him, whatever he did. He was a bus driver, and he was a bus aid worker for First Students for the past 4 years. That's an after-school program, like where they pick kids up from school and then take them to a program. That's what he did.
These sound like Americans. This sounds like a cross-section.
Andre McNeil, 53, brother, uncle, friend. He was trying to get his 3-year-old son a birthday cake that was ordered at the bakery. That's why he was at the store. Geraldine Talley. She's one of 9 children. 9. You just spent 3 hours at the foot of Ferry enjoying the day. That's like a big park in Buffalo, right? She'd spent 3 hours there. They were just hitting the grocery store up on the way home with her fiance. She had just learned 3 days prior that she was about to become a grandmother.
Man.
Those are the people involved here. What's the common thread there? Churches, kids, families, communities. The church. You had 3 church ladies killed in this. And again, church lady is a term of ultimate respect where I'm from. Church ladies, like, those are the glue people in your communities, right? Like, they're always there. You know where they're at in the church. They sit in the same place. They're there at the same time. They're dressed to the nines. They don't take no crap from anybody. They will call the preacher out if he says something wrong. I know Miss Rule, God bless her, when she was alive, she would pass my father notes what he would say wrong in church. Like, literally, she took notes and then gave him to him at the end. Like, you said this wrong, you said this wrong. These are glue people in a community. Now, juxtaposition this to the shooter, who by his own admission spent the COVID lockdowns on his computer marinating in hatred. He didn't have...
He could have used that same time. He could have gone to YouTube University and learned about celestial mechanics, trigonometry, calculus.
He could have followed our buddy Michael Siegel and learned about how the world works.
Yeah.
But these people who marinate in their own selves, that don't build community, that don't have those church ladies. I just talked about this online a while ago. I need to write about this. Boots McLaughlin died about last year. COVID got her the second time. She was well in her 90s in a nursing home. Second time she got COVID, it finally got her. Kelsey Pearson, I just tweeted pictures of Kelsey holding my daughter, my youngest daughter, when she was born. Right before we went to Germany, we went and saw Kelsey Pearson. Kelsey Pearson, Burton Pearson lived right beside me. All right. Boots McLaughlin was my primary babysitter the first 6-7 years of my life until I started going to school full time. Because when I was a kid, kindergarten was only a half day. Right. These really, really strong matriarchal women in my life that I just cannot imagine. And my kids have some of these too. Like, those are things you get from having a community, from having churches, and it doesn't have to be a church. It could be a civic organization. It could be people in academia. Those are enclosed things. People in the military. Group. Those are, the military is an enclosed. but you have people like that in your life over and over and over again. When we see these shooters and these people that commit violence, they're loners. They don't have community. They don't have that real strong female that'll just slap them in the head when they do something stupid when they're 4, 5, 6 years old, so that they learn that, oh, there's a line. I shouldn't cross that line because this woman will kill me because she does not care and she's all out of F's to give because she's old and cranky and will murder me.
She brought me in, she'll take me out.
You need people in your developmental. And when you read this guy's writings, by his own admission, he hated the world, and then he went looking for the people in the world to make the blame for it. Like, it's clear as day. He made himself a racist because he decided he was going to hate somebody for all the crap that he didn't understand.
That
he
did
settled
to himself.
Correct. And he settled on people of different races and ethnicities and religions of him. And it wasn't just, there was, anti-Semitism in there. There's a lot of other stuff. A lot of it doesn't make sense because he's clearly bent in the head, but
obviously not very well educated, was not paying attention in school when they had to match the verb and nouns.
Now, to be clear, some of the worst racists in the world have been academics of very high caliber. True. But it's the exact same principle. They're taking all that intellectual firepower that they were gifted with, but they're pointing it towards hatred. But they do it to themselves. They self-radicalize is the new term. They self-marinate in this crap. So whether you're an academic with a PhD, like a lot of people in the last century were, that were as racist as you can ever get, they had those big fancy titles after their names. They did it to themselves because they take what they have in their own hearts and minds and souls, and they point it towards trying to blame somebody else. And that's the root. Please, I hate to self-promote, although I do it all the time. The conversation we have with Dennis Saunders today, you got to go listen to this, because this is not something you're going to fix with policy. This is not going. Dennis is a writer, but he's also a pastor in Minneapolis. They went through the George Floyd crap. They went through the Kenosha crap. He's done this where his own community burned down around him from rioting. Like, this is the guy to talk to about this, and he's like, hey, the news cameras turn off and everybody leaves and everybody talks a good game about racial reconciliation, and then we're the ones sitting here sweeping up glass out of the pavement and trying to put people's lives back together. And it's the same thing with a mass shooting. The people are going to move away, and here we go again. This guy was known. He fell through the mental health care cracks. He fell through law enforcement cracks. He legally purchased a gun because there's a loophole in the laws where the juvenile reporting doesn't go into the track system, so that, it was all in the up and up because the system doesn't work. Like, there's all these factors over and over again of this should not have happened if everybody was accountable, and nobody was accountable. And we're going to turn around in a couple of months or a year, God forbid, whenever it happens, we're going to do this whole thing again, and we're not going to learn a damn thing about it. But it all goes back to this loner person with a broken soul and a broken mind, self-radicalized in hatred. And the people that had community around them, even though they were, mostly lower income, this is not a high income area. This is a food desert people have talked to endlessly about. Those people have community. You didn't have a shooter come out of that community and go hunt down. They didn't send out somebody to where that guy lived and start shooting his place up. It was the guy who self-isolated that went to where there was community and shot it up.
And needed to feel better than everybody else.
Feel better. And there's the racial component to it. Some of it is, man, I think there's something in these people that are broken that they just can't stand people being okay without them. And there's an element of that too.
And that's where my interest in the education, that the more educated and aware of history and people in history, we connect more with people. I don't know that we'll ever as a nation get to the level that the Amish do, because I know of no other community where they barn raise.
Do you remember the school shooting up there? Listen, do you remember the school shooting, the Amish school shooting? Where the guy went into the Amish school and just shot it up and killed, I think it was like 20 people. You know what they did? Do you remember that story?
No.
Hold on, let me pull it up because I want to make sure I tell this story correctly. This was not
That's
this long
absolutely
ago.
heinous. That's like going after the most peaceful people on the planet for what?
West Nickel Mine school shooting. This is in 2006. I didn't even think it was that far along. 6 dead. All right. Old Order Amish community, Nickel Mines, Village of Bart Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. This is the heart of Amish country.
been
Anybody's
there.
ever been up there?
Yeah.
I've been there too.
Beautiful country.
He goes into this little school, this Old Order Amish school. All right, this is where they still speak the weird German crap, right? He goes in, shoots him up, kills himself. Do you know what the Amish did?
They buried him?
No. The gunman, I'm not going to mention his name. Yeah. Whatever you're picturing in your head of loser white guy, that's exactly what this dude's picture looks like. Okay?
Fair enough.
So they're trying to figure out, they don't really know why. But the suicide note, he talked about the anger he held against God, which, go shoot up a church then. Why are you shooting up a school? There's a lot of disturbing pieces about this guy, and you can go read it up on your own. But here's the aftermath of it. Do you know what the Amish did?
Mm-mm.
They hold a press conference. And the father of several of the victims leads off this press conference. This is on YouTube. You can go find this. The grandfather of one of the murdered kids, and then the father of several of the kids. They open it up because, of course, in that society. By the way, do you know how the Amish do church? They don't have pastors. Every male of the community is expected to take a turn as a pastorate, and they take turns at it, which I find fascinating. But anyway, the grandfather and the father come out and they have this press conference. And the grandfather leads it off and he says, and I'm quoting here, "We must not think evil of this man." And the father, this is the father of the kids that got killed, came out and said, "He had a mother and a wife and a soul, and he is now standing before a just God, and we fear for him." That's the father of the killed kids. Another member of the community. I don't think there's anybody here that wants to do anything but forgive and not only reach out to those who have suffered a loss in that way, but reach out to the family of the man who committed these acts. We have a community here. He clearly did not have a community like we had, and it led him to this path.
Amen.
30 members of the Amish community went to his funeral.
His
widow.
That's anti-American almost, it seems.
Hold on. The Amish invited his widow to come to the funerals of the children. She was one of the only outsiders outside of some of the first responders that were allowed to come because their church services are closed. Like they know they're a tourist attraction. They're kind of picky about it. What you can and can't photograph, stuff like that. You are not allowed to go to their religious services. It's one of the things they hold really, really, which I don't blame them. Like
they hold that
we should
dear.
respect that. Some of the first responders were invited to the funerals for obvious reasons, because they were worried about them getting closure. The widow of the shooter was invited to all the funerals. Why? And one of the leaders of the community said, "This is how she heals." Marie, I'm not going to read the last name because
most people won't be able to identify with that. I'm struggling. I mean, I see it.
There's more. Marie, the widow. This is the widow of the shooter who did this, who didn't have anything to do with it, right? She's just innocent victim here. Wrote an open letter to her Amish neighbors thanking them for forgiveness, grace, and mercy. Listen to what she wrote. This is the shooter's widow after going to the funerals, and 30 members of that community, including the parents of the victims, came to her husband's funeral, right? "Your love for our family has helped to provide the healing we so desperately need. Gifts you've been given." They took her food for 3 weeks. "Gifts you've given have touched our hearts in ways no words can describe. Your compassion has reached beyond our family, beyond our community, and is changing the world. And for this, we sincerely thank you. The Amish do not normally accept charity, but because of the extreme nature of the tragedy, donations were accepted." Richie Laura, the director of the Anabaptist Foundation, that's a little, I don't want to get into the theology of it, but they're more mainstream without all the lifestyle, but they have a working relationship with the Amish, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Said the Amish community, whose religious beliefs prohibit them from having health insurance, will likely use the donations to pay the medical costs of the hospitalized children. None of those kids paid a dime, by the way. People just flooded them with money. Some commentators, I'm reading from some of the press releases here, criticized the quick and complete forgiveness with which the Amish responded, arguing forgiveness is inappropriate when no remorse has been expressed. Now, the caveat here, of course, is the guy's dead, so he can't express remorse if he wanted to. And such an attitude runs the risk of denying the existence of evil while others were supportive. Donald Craybill and 2 other scholars of Amish life noted that letting go of grudges is deeply rooted value in Amish culture, which remembers forgiving martyrs, including Dirk Wilhelms, and that's the Anabaptist leader. Long story, fascinating guy. Go read up on him. And Jesus himself. The Anabaptists at one point, I think it was about 2,000 of them lined up over the river, and the Inquisition lined up on the other side of the river. Says you go in that river and get baptized, we're going to kill you. All 2,000 went through. Way back in the day. How's your faith doing?
Yeah.
The Amish community whose religion... hold on, sorry, I skipped one.
I'm still mad that my pizza takes 14 minutes in the oven.
They explained that the Amish's willingness to forego vengeance does not undo the tragedy or pardon the wrong, but rather constitutes a first step towards a future that is more helpful. The week after the funerals, after the shooting, as soon as the funerals were done, the Amish demolished the schoolhouse. They took it apart. The site was left as a quiet pasture. The New Hope School was built at a different location near the original site and opened in 2007, precisely 6 months to the day after the shooting. The new school was intentionally built as different as possible from the original, right down to the style of the flooring.
To make it all new.
What are they telling you? We forgave it. We forgive it. This is a new thing.
We are moving on. A true moving forward from that.
Take that community. So you ask me why people go evil, the difference between evil and good. I don't know, but I know the development of the people that turn out good has a lot of community in it. And I know the development of the people that wind up evil, almost without exception, has a lacking community, or even worse sometimes, an abusive community. And we've talked about that. We've had Jennifer Greenberg on talking about abuse. And the abuse always works inside of a system, whether it's a family system, parochial system, works inside a government system, a church system, a school system. We've seen that in Wilmington plenty the last few years, haven't we, buddy? Abuse always works in a system. So community can be an abusive thing too. But you almost never see these people that are really evil coming out of good community. You always see them out of either a lack of community or a bad and abusive community. So you ask me about education, I think that's a big part of it, because more educated, but there was a lot of educated people that pushed, racist nonsense and eugenics and all kinds of great evil upon the world that had a lot of letters after their name. I think this community thing's the most important thing. And there's
seldom are they the ones who pull the trigger, though?
No.
It's these people that are uneducated that take the memes and the 5-word, out of context.
Correct.
And use that to feed their inner, it's like the nutrients for their insanity. But it's not the educated. The educated people know that they can, their idea, I guess, would be that I can say this because I have the freedom to say this. But I know better than to pick up a gun and go shoot somebody. But somebody who's, less developed intellectually would be more prone to emotional reaction in a violent
It's not
form.
emotional. It's you start filling up holes.
You don't think
in
that's
yourself
emotional?
It's emotional, but that's the symptom. That's not the disease. Emotion is a reaction. What they're doing is they fill up the holes in themselves with whatever they can get their hands in. And when they know they have a hole in themselves and they start filling up with hate, this is what happens.
You don't think that being more educated would be...
It helps.
I'm not going to argue that community is
no, it
certainly
helps.
an element to it.
I know too many academics that are just horrible, wicked people, and they stay in academia
I
because
guess,
they can't.
right.
They never function in the real world. And I'm not knocking. That's a minority. Don't take that too far.
I've been lucky that a lot of the cats.
My father, who has at least three advanced degrees that I know of, he always joked. He's like, "Yeah, your entry level courses at a college are taught by people who probably shouldn't be in society whatsoever, and that's why they have that job." Because they're the nuttiest people you'll ever meet.
But they're also the ones who sort of weed out those who are actually meant for college and those who are not.
Yeah, in a weird way. It's like...
Because there's an attrition rate of the first year of college that's, in the 60 percentile range?
Yeah, it's way up there. But, And it's
And
good to laugh
that's
about this
another.
because this
That's a
stuff's
lot
heavy.
of places. A lot of people's first experience with a enclosed, if you will, community, because a college campus is pretty much its own community with diversity, obviously, from the student body, but it's a
By
lot
the
of
way-
people's first experience with a community.
By the way, we need to mention it here too as we wrap this up. That Amish school shooting, all the victims were female.
Man.
It was actually termed a femicide. It was a, we're talking, Buffalo was a racially motivated killing. This was a sexually, and I don't mean sexually as in abusive, although
It was
I don't want to get into it.
gender-based.
He had certain paraphernalia on it that indicates he had plans to do other things that he didn't actually get around to doing, thank God. But it was a gender sex-based crime. He was purposefully targeting girls. He lined the girls up. There was a pregnant woman in the hostages that he had the pregnant woman, the 3 parents with an infant, and all the boys, and he ran them all out. And then he lined up the girls and executed them. And there was one girl that I can't remember now. I got to go look it up. There was one girl that was like 9 years old, and she snuck out with her sister that was her older sister was left behind, and she managed to sneak out when the other ones left, and he just, for whatever reason, they got out. So when he started shooting, they bum rushed the school, but by the time they got in there and clipped him,
He was already done.
Well, I think it was like 13 shots for the victims, and then the last one, right as they got to the door, he shot himself, being the coward that he is.
Thankfully.
And again, not to stereotype, but if you go look this guy up on, his picture will come right up.
And it falls
He's
right
got
in line with
he
all
has
the
a
other
mug shot
mugshots.
from, he's got a mug shot for, previous petty crimes and what such. He was a milk truck driver of all the freaking thing. He had 3 kids and a wife. He left 4 separate suicide notes, one for each kid and his wife. How freaking narcissistic was this dude?
I'm that important.
Yeah, he's just a mess. But yeah, he was targeting women. So usually it's guy with a woman issue, guy with that's why this incel stuff's so bad. You got to keep an eye on it. Guy with racial issues, guy with issues with Jewish people, guy with religious people, guy with people with Muslims, guy with, this guy, you can go self-radicalize and convinced that the purple pink hippopotamuses are going to ruin the republic, and all of a sudden you got to go shoot up such and such place. These are the people we got to keep an eye out, my friend. But anyway, we're out of time. But heard tell today, our friend Dennis Saunders. I would never have Dennis Miller on my show. Dennis Saunders he has so much wisdom on these events. Please go listen and really watch it, because you need to see his face, because there's a lot of pauses in this, and I didn't clean up the audio. I left the pauses, both his and mine, and we stumble. It's not super clean because this stuff's hard, man. This is the hard stuff people don't want to talk about, and we're trying to talk through it. So I left it pretty raw. Watch it on YouTube if you can. It's really good stuff, and we talk about, there's not a policy that's going to fix this. This is the nature of evil. This is what it means to be human. This is the stuff we're wrestling with here. And he takes his perspective as being, he's been in Minneapolis for the last couple of years, so he has, unfortunately, a lot of experience with these big news event type things and what it does to a community. So he talks about that. We also talk about President Trump has shown up in the Pennsylvania too close to call elections. He's already crying foul. The ridiculous 2,000 Mules video, we take a shot at it. I love our ending story today. John Williams, the great composer. I say he's one of the greatest composers of all time. I'll put him up there with Mozart, Beethoven, you bring whoever. He's that good. You know him. He composes the Star Wars theme, the Jar Wars theme. He has a very direct tie to the Andy Griffith Show. And the famous episode where Opie learns about how to do charity because he was supposed to donate to school, and Andy gets all over him for it. He has a direct link to that episode of Andy Griffith. So we ended up on that because it was such a heavy show. I want to do something really, really light. But John Williams, great story. Make sure you catch that tomorrow. Special Heard Tell. Election doubleheader. Joe Zemansky is going to be back on. We're going to cover all the primaries from this week. We're going to preview Georgia on Monday. And Bill Bowkett from over in the UK. The UK just had local elections. They got a hot mess on their hands with their elections, my friend. So double election episode tomorrow on Heard Tell.
Tell me it has nothing to do with porn in Parliament.
He mentioned it, but yeah, that was a funny story. This dude, I know we gotta go. Homeboy played it off. He got caught watching porn, so he said he was looking up a harvesting machine called the Dominator, but that was not the kind of Dominator he was looking at, and we'll leave it there because we don't want to catch an FCC violation because we broke. Anyway, great episode tomorrow on Heard Tell. The Twice on Sunday is going to be loaded this week, my friend. Oh, my Lord, the interviews we've had this week.
Yeah, man. That's why we had to go to 3 hours, because it's just not fair to cut those things down, man.
No, and that is a Big Talker specific product. Get the app. Best way to get that. 3 hours of just info sandwich, grown folk talk. Going to be a blast today. We're happy with it. And I've got a little something coming out later today that hopefully will be out today for you to talk about tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, appreciate you, my friend. Let's wrap this baby up.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for calling in. Certainly to give a little insight into the community, because I'm still education based. But certainly within the community, I think this can be addressed. But until we start having these hard conversations as adults, we're not going to get to the bottom of it. And certainly not with lower than 20% voter turnout, for Christ's sake. If you want things to change, you got to do something. Voting is a good way to get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Go ahead. What were you saying?
That's good music. I just vibing.
Okay. I'm working on
this is all the dance I got right here for people on YouTube. This is all you get right now. My disabled self, you get a little head bob. That's about it.
Wait a minute.
Oh, here. What's that thing my daughter does? Here you go. She does the hand thing like this.
I haven't seen that.
That's all you get. That's all you get. That's all the dance move you get.
Right there from
Talk
the American Music Awards. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you tomorrow on the Big Talker.
Folks, you know you're all looking for that special gift. Lines are long, traffic is frustrating, supply chains in the news. Just take a deep breath. If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come by Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. Avoid the traffic, the lines, the frustration, and get that extraordinary and special gift. From high-end diamond rings to Larimar, from necklaces to bracelets, watches, and unique jewelry. And you also get one-on-one service with their experienced staff. Great prices now, just in time for the holidays. Come by and check out Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive.